Let's do this.
Hi guys, sorry it took us a bit. We were just kind of tweaking stuff, so it's, you know, on my end, I'm still new at this, and I've got my two hosts, and I mute my own stream. Mute my own stream like a professional would, you know, like, but you know, YouTube takes a while for it to like kicks in, and then it's like, oh, look, you're working.
We're just a bunch of scrubs.
Mm-hmm.
This thing is gonna get only better from here. It cannot
we hope.
get any worse.
We hope. We still have a Frenchman on the panel. No, I love you guys. So how's everybody been doing today? Don't all answer at once. Jeez.
I'm doing fairly well. How about yourself?
I am tired as fuck, but I got my coffee.
Okay, good.
Got to stay caffeinated. People will tell you got to stay hydrated. That is utter bullshit. You have to stay caffeinated. There's a reason.
I'm always hyped up when I'm live. It's time to turn on the show, baby.
Dectran, I ain't French. Believe me, if I were to try to speak French to Magic or Caligula, sorry, I'm still brainwashed by Will. But if I were to speak French, he'd just be looking at me like, wow. I never needed to hear that. Ever.
Oui, j'ai joué au pamplemousse.
What?
Exactly.
Bonjour, comment ça? Well, keep talking in English, please.
Yeah. No problems there on my end. I like the language. And I'm proficient in it, at least most of the time when I've been properly caffeinated.
So can we get a link to the in-chat session on YouTube? I want to know what's going on there. You know?
The in-chat session?
We should see what keeps people entertained.
Are you not entertained?
Are you not entertained?
I'm Ron Burgundy.
Very nice.
I lost the Leo article. What am I doing? Most professional
stream ever.
It's almost as good as me, who's just like, well, the only thing I really have is that Rebel stream that they did earlier, and I don't pay for their shit because I don't have money. So I kind of refuse to. So I can't exactly post an article from them. And it's also the Rebels. So most people are like, well, you got it from the Rebel.
Right.
But they did that interview with Peter Downing. Yeah, I highly recommend that anybody who's interested go watch it. Because Peter's got a hard one on him. Because he's got no plan. And he's still accepting money from people who think that he does.
Yeah.
You know, and
like he's got a goal, but he doesn't have any plan on how to start dealing with to get to his goals.
Yeah,
and that can be a big problem for anybody, especially when you're trying to start a stream and everybody's kind of anyway. But yeah, no, that is very unfortunate because for right now, especially given the political climate and what's been going on, there needs to be a centralized voice. And you're not getting represented by your political representation. Jason Kenney isn't going to do anything for you. There needs to be somebody to step up and start talking about a plan. Nobody's doing that. I mean, people have their ideas, but like we were talking about before, some of them are a little bit out there and it's a little bit scattered and there's several different voices. I hope and I pray that these people can come together, sort of tone it down maybe a little bit, and then start just presenting what the problems are, and that places like CBC and CTV and major news outlets will start giving them coverage on this, because it is a very important issue to Canada and it's going largely ignored which is a complete juxtaposition of what was going on with Quebec separation, and with the recent election giving a lot of seats in Quebec to the Bloc. We might see that also spring up again. I don't think so. I think that they're going to take it a little bit smart and use the system we already have in place to give a little bit more autonomy to Quebec, which is good. I'm actually really much in favor of seeing provinces govern themselves a little bit more, a lot less federal intervention. And then on the federal level, I think we all agree on this, they should deal with very few things like, borders and immigration and like a national issue, and leave everything else to the provinces more or less.
Deal with the thing that they are supposed to doing.
Oh, jeez.
Deal with.
If only.
Instead of intervening in every fucking sector of our life. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing that the three of us vehemently agree upon, is that federal overreach, specifically in Canada where we live, but, in other countries too, it's becoming too much. Yeah. And they're overstepping their bounds on every front, and it's not good.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we have, provincial, state, territorial governments, because the issues in Alberta are not the same as in New Brunswick, not the same as in Northwest Territories, for very good fucking reason.
Oh, let me share this. There you
go. Oh, right, our first story.
But just to follow up on the end of that one, so I did message a fellow on YouTube who has a significantly bigger channel than us. His full name is Adam. I'm mangling his middle name, but Denzel, and then his last name is Mazet. And he's from Toronto, and he's kind of leaning on the Wexit side, and I don't blame him from that, because he's not far from your thinking functional. He's more of a nationalist, but like he can understand why we're so very angry, and why we want to like put our foot down a lot in terms of how we deal with our federal government in our relationships. And the reason I did is there's a real reason why I've been streaming the Wexit movement Discord, and it's like, yes, there's people in there that I think might be a bit of a problem. Hi, Cynic. But he's got a really good in-depth on how the politics work in Toronto and Ottawa.
Or and I was work.
Or don't work. And I was like, because he has been crowing for the Wexit, I just want him to see like the parts where like, the whole movement, regardless of which side you're on, there's some stuff that's seriously wrong with both of them. I don't think they entirely understand that. Like, they have some good points. They absolutely do. There's some good people in there that I know just want to improve Canadian life for everybody. But they're surrounded by people who I think are really just taking advantage of the situation, or they have good intentions and they just really don't know what they're talking about. But I'm hoping by contacting this guy, because he does have a bit more presence, and he does seem like he knows a little bit about what he's talking about. Okay. He wouldn't be a bad guy to bring in on that. Now, I'm not saying he would join our streams. Like, I'm a little guy, so the most I have is something that would give him a good video, and at least maybe some appreciation for just handing it to him. Right. I would like him to take a lot of points and poke at Peter a lot, because he's coming across as like, maybe he does have good intentions. Maybe he started out with good intentions, but without a plan and accepting money, he's created himself as a liability. And he's got some shady people in his group. And this is something that he has to come to terms with. Like, you might be friends with people, but if they're saying stuff that's crazy, you might have to boot them from the team, or you need to actually talk to the real politicians who are actually our independent party. Exactly. Because what they have a plan for would give us a lot more say over what we do with our own products, their own. Yeah, because they're literally entering the politosphere now, and they have to play the game, and sometimes you have to curtail some of your more obscure or outspoken voices so that you can have that unified front.
And like I said, if they're entering the politisphere, they need to have a united front to get their message out, or people will just look at that from, you know, the rest of the country and be like, oh, it's just a bunch of crazy people screaming.
And probably the last thing I'll have to say on it. The other reason I wanted him to talk to them is because I don't think they realize just how dirty politicians can be. That's why you need politicians on your side to help you with it, because they actually understand that. Like, they do understand the legal ramifications of what it is that you're trying to do. So just assuming that you're going to do what Quebec did, you know, 20 years after it's already happened, is very, you know, I don't think that I don't think they're prepared at all, because they don't even have a plan for that. They're already talking about constitutions, and you're sitting there like, hold on a minute. You still have to talk to Ottawa. It's not about asking for permission. You know, there's legal things that are involved in that thing that you're talking about. And this is a wasp's nest of politicians who've been doing this for a long time.
And like I said before, they'd have a lot more support if they pushed not the meat and potatoes of what the Constitution would entail, but the idea of a revamped, modernized Constitution for all of Canada. To enshrine individual rights and freedoms, like freedom of speech, but to also, in a more broader sense, allow provinces to be a little bit more self-governing. But the biggest problems, like Caligula and I were talking about before, was that who gets to write this stuff, which is the problem. But if they just, you know, pulled back on the reins a little bit and just said, we just want to present the idea of a constitution. Let's get that in the dialogue. Let's get that in the public mindset. People will start thinking about it. And if they start playing the political game properly, they might actually gain some traction. Because if that kind of a thing, it appeals to someone like me in the heart of Toronto. It appeals to Caligula in Quebec. It'll appeal to people on the East Coast, West Coast, up, down, left, right, center, BA start, you know?
Well, the problem is that you also have a large portion of the population that are currently satisfied with the charts of rights and liberties. And that can be a pain in the ass to deal with.
I mean, well, I can say that, you know, I'm somewhat okay with our charter. The enforcement is a problem, but I'm also on board for, hey, let's start talking about Constitution. We're one of the only Western countries that doesn't have you know, the UK, they have Magna Carta, which is an outdated document. In the States, they have their Constitution, which it's a more recent document. It could use a little bit of buff and polish and more modern language clarification, so that they aren't constantly going to the Supreme Court going, what's the wording on this and what's the wording on that? And you don't have crazies like Beto going, we're going to take your guns. Well, you know what, asshole? That infringes with our most sacred document, the Constitution. So you can go fuck right off. Don't let the door hit your stoned ass on the way out.
And I mean, the other thing too is this thing that they haven't realized is it's easier to actually, you know, even if we were to separate as a country, like as our own country, you're not going to start off with this pre-written constitution. That's not actually how it happens. Usually what happens is you leave first, you establish that you've left and that you're independent. And then you make you elect a person. That's the first thing you really do, is you elect a person that's going to be your leader, and they're gonna write in what you've asked him to write in for your first constitution. And then after that, it's just a matter of tweaking it. You know, as time goes by, and you're like, this doesn't really work. This works better. It's not that much different, you know, in the U.S. when you really think about it. Like, I mean, they had to do that too over time. So this idea that we're just going to have like, oh, our country's just going to be this socialist utopia, because a lot of them are talking socialists, you know, and it's really mind boggling, because you're like, okay, wait a minute. We just got rid of NDP. we just got rid of the Liberals. Why are you guys talking like that? Because that's not what we wanted. That's not what we want at all. We want a firm say in what's done in our country.
Yeah, and that's what led to most of the problems that we're dealing with now, was these forms of super socialism in a capitalist sort of society. And again, that brings us back to the first thing of, you know, you need to polish up your message and have a single unified plan of attack.
Yeah.
You can't have people who are yeah. Anyway, sorry, a bit of a brain fart.
No
sorry,
worries,
audience.
No worries.
I just sort of woke up.
It's true. I can expound on this. It's true that we need something common to fight for, no matter where in Canada we are. So, of course, having a constitution written in negative rights instead of positive that can be removed at any point would be a big starter.
Yeah. Enshrining the fact that the government cannot infringe on your right to freedom of speech, expression,
exactly,
blah blah blah, you know, like cannot infringe, end of story. So that, you know, in 80 years when people are like, well, I don't think that freedom, like when we're secular as a species in our societies, we don't want to come back to it in another 80 years and say, oh, well, I don't think that freedom of speech should be protected because, well, no, sorry, we dealt with this 80 years ago, shall not be infringed. Goodbye. You've said your piece, now move on.
Exactly. And like I said, it's a race for having more privilege under the Bill of Charters and Rights. And that's what I oppose, those positive rights. Not only that, but the government itself can choose to remove any section of it. And they did for during the Trudeau administration. They did put blasphemy laws with the Muslim, with the bill 103 or something.
Yeah. So. And also the Harper government before that with limiting access to public institution information, publicly funded institutions. I wasn't happy about that. I don't think that, you know, if we have publicly funded scientific endeavors, environmental endeavors, and research units, that we should have to ask the government for permission to read their notes, to read their papers. Sorry, that's our money that we're funding to learn these things, because these are, for lack of a better word, better people suited to those fields. Like, I'm not going to go out into the wilds of Alberta to learn about the mating habits of the fox, because I don't have the skills or the resources to do that. But part of my tax money goes to people who are accomplished, learned to be able to do those things. And something as simple as that, you know, shouldn't be behind a, you know, government barrier.
The main excuse is you're too stupid to understand the science behind it. That's the same shit with the environmentalist thingy. They put it behind a paywall that you have to pay to see publicly funded result of studies or result of data mining. Yeah. And the argument is you're too stupid to interpret the data, basically. So you have to have some climate scientists interpreting the data for you. And I do not agree with that. I think it should be transparent as shit.
Yeah.
So even if there's climate scientists that like want to push something, they might have some others that disagree with them. And that's totally fine. That's totally fine, but at least let us see the result. I'm not going to say that I know everything when I see the data coming out of it, but I can make my own idea, at least, about the subject. So yeah, that whole it's a tiresome argument. You're too stupid to understand the data. I'll put it on the nice hockey stick graphics so you can better understand. You know?
Yeah, and it's again, it comes full circle back to the government overreach in telling us, as on the individual level, what we should know, what we want to know, or how informed we are. Because, you know, on things like the environment, like if they reported that the Great Lakes lost 2 centimeters over the last 3 years on their water level, I'd be like, okay, first glance, that might be a little alarming. But now I can look at the research from 50 years ago, and it was, you know, maybe even 4 centimeters lower than it was today.
Yeah.
Okay. Then maybe now putting it into context, we can see, yeah, well, obviously it fluctuates. So where's the issue? Oh, now I can see that this particular puff piece that has taken the information and regurgitated it to me seemingly has an agenda to push climate alarmism.
Yeah.
You know, they're part of the Greta, how dare you camp.
I can't believe that she had a bike ride with fucking Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, well, I mean, when you have a populist figure like that, people are gonna get on board and try to get their faces next to him. I don't understand why Arnold would. I mean, Arnold does a lot of speaking on behalf of the environment. He doesn't, from what I've seen, he hasn't been part of like the cult of alarmism. I mean, he does believe that, you know, like I do, yeah, maybe we pollute a little too much. And where can we improve?
When the Special Olympic, he was one of the first proponents of the Special Olympic, but he was calling it the retarded Olympic. It was hilarious.
It could also just be Arnold flipping the bird at Trump too, you know, like because they had that fight and like Arnold just kind of became super like anti-Trump, right?
Yeah, orange man bad.
But he's still technically a little bit conservative, you know, so it's not like he doesn't have some sway with that crowd.
Yeah.
So like him doing that could just be him like flipping the bird because, you know, it's not like, I mean, he's
a Californian.
Yeah, there are some conservatives that are like middle ground where they're just like, well, just in case, let's maybe just like wean down on this thing a little bit or something. And they're just dumb enough to go along.
Talking of Californian, General Patton was a Californian too.
But not a modern day soy-filled Californian, pampered little bitches that most of them seem to be.
Like I said, you don't have to judge a book by its cover. Nixon was from California.
Yeah, yeah.
So is Reagan.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of people that are. It's maybe because when you're surrounded by zombies, you develop a better survival guide. I don't know. But yeah. And which I tried to segue to Leo Major here.
Canada's own General Patton, so to speak.
Yeah. So I wanted to put a light on General Leo Major, because he is an iconic figure that is not well known in his own fucking country, but in Belgium and Dutchland, he's very well known. He has even a street corner dedicated to him, with the label Liberator of Swol, which is a city in Belgium. Or Dutch, I don't remember which one.
Dutch.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think we have different article. If you can link me this one, I can read along with you.
Okay, I thought we had the same one, but I'm bad like that.
Yours is from the CBC. I usually don't use that.
Yeah, no, I picked the CBC article because they tend to make their stuff a little bit more easily digestible. And as somebody who has a, you know, as the article suggests, largely unknown at home, yeah, that's not, when you first mentioned it to me before when we were off air, I was like, okay, the name sounds familiar. But once you started talking about him, I was like, oh, right, yeah, Canada's own, you know, mad lad, fucking General Patton, fucking multiple-time war hero.
He refused a medal, like a British commemoral medal, because he thought Montgomery was an idiot.
Yeah, Deck Tran said Cheriton Heston.
Yeah. So, who wants to go first? Who wants to read a little bit?
You guys go ahead.
Okay. So, on the evening of April 14th, 1945, Canadian soldier Leo Major single-handedly liberated the Dutch town of Zwolle from the Nazis in a story that's almost too incredible to be true. And again, like I said before stream, you know, I hope that Dank highlights this guy at some point, because he's one of those crazy nutbags who takes it into his own personal power to actually affect change in the chaos that was the Second World War. Yeah. The late Major is the only Canadian ever to receive a Distinguished Conduct Medal in 2 separate wars for service in the Second World War and Korea. But his heroic actions didn't inspire any parades or effigies back at home. Again, largely like unknown. You can go out on the street and ask people who Leo Major is; they probably shrug at you.
Yeah.
His own son, Daniel Aimé Major, did not have a clue what his father had done until an official from the Netherlands arrived on his doorstep 30 years later, bearing the words of gratitude. He was 9 at the time, and remembered his mother asking his father why he never mentioned the incident. His father replied that Major didn't think anyone would believe him, and left it at that.
There you go.
You know, and he even says, I was crazy and everything turned out good. As you can see in the picture here, you know, the young Leo right here. He single-handedly liberated an entire town from German occupation. So, you know, they were entrenched in a town, and he just went balls to the wall. Like,
not only that, but he only has one good eye too.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, in this quote here, he only had one good eye following a close call with a phosphorus grenade, and he sported an eye patch for the rest of the war, refusing to be taken out of the fight and sent home. As his son tells it, when officials told him that his part in the war was over, he replied, "No, it's not over. I'm a sniper. I only need one eye," which is true.
Yeah.
there's one of those iconic
fuck that
black and white photographs.
Fuck that perception. Okay, he only had one good eye following close call with
random.
You're right. Oh, you said you read that part. As his son tells it, when the official told him that was its part, was the war over, he replied, "No, it's not over. I'm a sniper. I only need one eye." On that fateful day in April 1945, Major, a private at the time, volunteered to sneak into the town undercover in the darkness and reconnoiter. Accompanied by his friend in the force, CPL William Arsenault. Okay. Chasing the Nazi out. Arsenault was killed early on the mission. In his grief and rage, Major decided to fuck shit up.
Fucking rage!
He took his camera and firearm and munition and charges the city alone. His exploits are in the new documentary that aired last month on Radio Canada. Zwolle, located about 100 kilometers east of Amsterdam, was then a town of 50,000, but it didn't take Major long to locate the German soldier and disarm him.
That's about 250 miles for you American.
Yeah.
I guess you can call them people.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
But it didn't take long for Major to locate the German soldier and disarm him. He spoke to the soldier in French, because of course he will. Employing the risky gambit that ultimately paid off. Major managed to convince the German soldier that the town was surrounded by Canadian troops, and that if the Germans left right away, they would be spared. He left the Nazi soldier go to relay the message and give back his gun as a sign of good faith. Fearing the bluff would not stick, Major started fuck shit up to run through the street of Zoil, firing his machine gun and setting off grenades. Basically going full retard. This wasn't enough, Major located the Gestapo headquarters and set the building on fire.
So typically Quebec.
He also took a dozen of German prisoners with the help of some local resistance fighters. It's such a crazy story. It's almost surreal, said his son. It's a story that his father never spoke of until the message of gratitude from the Dutch began to pour in. A lasting legacy. The family discovered that there was, and still is, a street name for Major in Soil. And when he passed away several years ago, Dutch national made the trip across the ocean to attend the service. It was really strange for me to see that, said his son on the daybreak. There were citizens from the Netherlands, and there was a general from the Netherlands, and the Major of Swol was there too. You can see a picture of him on his dying bed there. Yeah. There you go.
With his son and grandson.
He still have like one lazy eyes there. It's creepy.
Well, yeah, because it's not a real eye. And
Yeah.
I mean, even at that late stage in his life, to even just crack a smile like that after all the shit he's been through in his life and all the craziness that sort of preceded the rest of his life, it's good to see. It's heartwarming.
Yeah.
Especially when you were dealing with something that had such ramifications worldwide, but we tend to forget that these places like the Dutch, the Germans, people in the Netherlands, they were affected first and foremost by the Nazis. So we Westerners as a whole, we tend to sort of forget about that, and we with the given current political climate, we Nazis. You know what, guys? That was actually something serious that happened. The Nazis that exist today, even actual neo-Nazis, are not the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are wannabe goose stepper.
Yeah, that's why it enrages me so much that they even try to take anything from the veterans. I'm just like, screw you, motherfuckers.
Well, no, random. It wasn't Poland. It was Germany. Because again, a lot of people forget that the first country the Nazis conquered was Germany. I mean, I can trace my lineage back to German. My last name is very German, but my family on that side were Jews, so they obviously fled as soon as they could, and. But yeah, no, it was the German people. And then, shortly after, Poland fell, and, they occupied France, and they bombed London. So, I mean, it did have very, very real repercussions for that geographical location.
In London, they were giving guns so the people could kill their company animals. Yeah. Just to get rid of their companionship animal, like a cat or a dog. They will give guns and bullets just to do that. It was that bad in London. So
yeah,
I would say that the next line pisses me off. The gesture of honor, Major, don't end there. In the documentary, Hank Giant Major or whatever in the Netherlands language. The mayor of Swol said that the liberation story is still taught in school in the area, and not a word in our own fucking country. He's the guy that did all that shit.
It's a double-edged sword. It's sad on one point that we don't talk about him, but it's also completely inspiring and beautiful that the people, the location that he directly affected, still talk about him today and teach about him, because you know, like we've talked about offline, Canada doesn't have those folk heroes, those individuals that have done so good, and they're mostly left out. We don't really talk about them. We don't teach our children who they were. And I mean, in my own perspective, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that, you know, our doors are wide open and there isn't really that sort of passing of the Canadian identity in a big major metropolis like Toronto, which tends to be the big political center of the entire country.
Well, it's mostly try to demonize them if they bring them up. Especially like Christophe Columbus, and not only Christophe Columbus, but Jacques Cartier and Wilfrid Laurier, that actually made Canada as big as it is right now, and John A. Macdonald, which was the first prime minister, I think. He got his statue removed in BC. So,
I mean, I remember in school, I was being taught about people like, oh, Roberta Bondar. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Oh, you know, great. Like, I appreciate the amount of time and energy and personal investment it takes, and restrictions and qualifications it takes to be an astronaut. That's one thing. But we're not taught about her because she was an astronaut. We're taught about her because she was a female astronaut. And I'm like, who the fuck cares? I don't care about your immutable characteristics, man, woman, dog. You know, it doesn't matter. What have you accomplished? What have you done? And so, again, a double-edged sword in that, like, yeah, great. We're talking about one person because of her accomplishments, but I think we're focusing a little bit too much on the fact that she was a woman.
Yeah.
And in fact, the first people in space was indeed a dog.
Yep. Cosmo the dog.
Bow wow.
Anyway, you want to continue?
I think we've pretty much covered it. You know, Rambo of Quebec. They
maybe
actually
just I don't know if you put the picture up. Yeah, the picture of the sign. The sign that is actually in their city, in the Netherlands. So.
Yeah, Deck, we do kind of have our own sort of e-celebs with, you know, Jordan B. Peterson, Lindsay Shepherd. But a problem I have with that is that it's mostly, you know, it ties in with the adage of, you know, no press is bad press, where bad press gets people notoriety. I'd still rather people, I'm very much into meritocracy in that, like, people should be elevated because of the great things that they did, not because of who they are or what they are. If that kind of makes sense. Like, everybody knows the name Jessica Yaniv. Why? Yeah. Because they're a total fucking prick. Anyway, this kind of ties into... Where the hell did I put the article? Let's minimize that. Let's get rid of the crazy stuff I have on screen. I had it here.
Not even Deck Train. The problem with the Canadian schools is, like, the whole topic is rushed through. Like, for a lot of our Canadian history, like, I mean, we do learn it, but, like, we learn it because our parents teach us. You know, we learn it because, you know, quite often you see programs that teach you about it, or documentaries, or we just look stuff up on our own. But when it came to school, like, most of the focus was on the living veterans, which is good, you know. But the actual, like, in-depth talk about the war in school, I mean, I don't know about you guys in Toronto, but, like, or Quebec, but
that's over.
Yeah, we're taught that, you know, hey, we played, the Canadian troops played a big part in, like, the storming of Normandy, but there's no real in-depth sort of analysis of some of the heroes of the time, or actual, you know, conflicts and whatnot that happened. We're just kind of told that it was happened, that all this happened, and then move on.
You know, I mean, luckily we have museums and stuff for it. Like, I mean, my dad took me to the museum. He was just like, just so you know, this is the crappy equipment we were given. And most of our guys died because of the crappy equipment. And a lot of the guys died because we weren't really given control over our own military in that war until, like, you know, quite into it, when we were like, okay, you guys are just slaughtering us because you're stupid. America, you understand what I'm saying here.
Operation Get Behind the Snow Mexicans.
You know?
Yeah, like I said, it's glanced over. Every fucking war are glanced over. So even the French-Indian War is glanced over.
Yeah.
So that brings... Oh, yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to move on because I think we've
Oh yeah, we've done this one.
Did a good job with that article.
The thing that is to remember is Leo Major was a badass, and we should have some commemorative monument at his name somewhere in fucking Canada. Okay?
Yeah. I would get behind putting up a nice statue of him, and actually bring his story up as a story of interest during Remembrance Day. Yeah. And also in 100, so that in 100 years, insane leftists can demand that we tear down the statue because he killed some Nazis.
We want less Page Power song and more Leo Major storytelling. There you go. That fucking Page Power thingy was cringe as fuck.
I remember that. Oh god, I remember that.
It was a dig at Trump. At the end of the day, it was not very good. Saying that Canadian are already great. Yeah, right. In your fucking dream.
And even if we were, why would we want to rest on those laurels? Why wouldn't we want to continue to be great? Like something Monkey had said in one of his streams recently, probably like 2 weeks ago. He was mentioning something about innovation, and he brought up something like, I don't want to misquote him or anything, but he brought up something about innovation, and then I brought up the fact that in Canada we actually innovate quite a bit of technology, especially in the fields of medicine. But again, because we're Canada, people don't really talk about it. Like things like a lot of cancer research, modern techniques that we're using that are more effectively combating cancer. Are Canadian developments. I wish I had the article in front of me right now because it's relevant, but
I would like to answer a question from our chat. Does Canada has a version of Medal of Honor? It's generally tied to the British Empire, so it's a reward that you receive from the Queen of England.
Yeah. And I believe Major's award, I forget what it was called, but that was one of our...
It was a British thingy, yeah. It was totally something with the Queen Elizabeth.
The Distinguished Conduct Medal.
Yeah. From Britain fucking monarchy bullshit.
Yeah, and the Victory Cross as well, but yeah.
Yeah.
So to turn it over to a little bit of what the fuck? I have this article from this med student who's a Parisian French citizen who's been studying in Quebec. Apparently didn't demonstrate adequate French language proficiency and was denied her immigrant status. And it's funny because we've talked previously about merit-based immigration, and these are the type of people that we should be welcoming with open arms, but because of red tape bullshit in some manner or another, they're denied. Like, I mean, hopefully this story will gain some traction and she will be awarded her Canadian citizenship, but because just to sort of
it's written that she's denied of her English thesis chapter.
Well, yeah, I was gonna summarize that in her thesis, 1 chapter out of 5 was written in English, and that is largely in part because in the scientific community, the Western community, it's done in English. So she wanted to, put that out there so that people who aren't French speaking, which is the majority of Western scientists, can basically get an easy understanding of what's going on before having to have it all translated and whatnot. And I think that's a little bit retarded, because the other 4/5 of it was in French.
Yeah, it is. I like the background with like the Nazi symbology behind it too. It's great. Like those little eagles thingy.
Little gray eagles.
Yeah. I'm like, what the fuck? But okay. I'll take it up on the chin. Yeah, but yeah, it's really retarded. It's very salad dressing, window dressing, what we have going with our immigration policy right now. And it's bullshit because it does nothing to stomp the illegal immigrant that are going here. It's mostly window dressing for the legal immigration, putting restriction on them. And retarded restriction like those, like that case that you see right there.
Yeah. And, you know, she's kind of cute to boot, so let's get some good genetics in here, too.
Yeah. But
I mean, even you know, it says in the article she was alternating between laughing and not understanding. So she's obviously taking it with a little bit of levity, which is good, because hopefully she can fight it and appeal the decision. Yeah. Because I mean, I understand Quebec's want for to preserve their language. You know, that's great.
It's a
but it's
concern. From first-hand base, I can tell you that if most of the Quebec people would learn English, they will see that they get fucked in the ass. So they would stop. They would stop bragging about their French language and moving to some bigger fish to fry. But that's an entire thing in itself. It's they try. It's like a little section of the entire country that they will implement a 1984 style of governance there. So everything from the lyrics of the song that you hear, from the TV programming, it's all for you to think in a certain perspective and not deviate from it. It's very, very forced. I'm one of the exception, because I've learned my English for the most part.
Yeah, a lot of well, I mean, for obvious reasons, a lot of the people I would consider friends and colleagues that are from Quebec or Quebecois do have a very good understanding of English. I mean, obviously, English is not the easiest language to learn as a second language.
Yes,
but to no, it's not. But
compared to the fucking Spanish thingy, it's easy.
Maybe it's your primary language.
Yeah, it's because French and English use they steal each other's words. It's maybe not like in French from France and not the English from Britain, but here like it's mixed upon constantly. So you get a lot of words in English that you also get in French. You just have to change how you say it.
Yeah.
Put a certain verbiage over it.
And for people who aren't aware, I mean, French is French at its core, but Parisian French and Quebecois French do have their differences and aren't entirely similar. It would be like asking somebody from Spain to speak their brand of Spanish and then going to Mexico and speaking to them in their brand of Spanish. There are differences. Obviously, there's colloquialisms and jargon and slang.
Yeah, sure. It's very much Americanized. We don't say son of a hoe like the French from France says. We say son of a bitch like the American do.
Yeah.
But regardless of that, another good example would be the difference between British English and Scottish English and American English. It doesn't not sound the same at all.
Yeah.
I can barely understand the Scottish one, to be honest. And I'm trying. I'm trying, but sometimes, man, their influctuation on words is weird, and it's hard to understand.
Yeah, the accent can be a little bit discouraging to some.
Yeah.
Luckily, again, part of my lineage is also part Scottish, so I grew up with a at some point knowing a Scottish gran, so very, very thick Scottish accent. You kind of had to work a little bit extra hard to understand what she was saying. So if you're not very well experienced in talking to people with certain accents or dialects, it is very hard.
Well, the first thing that we learn as foreigners or people that don't speak English, it's gotta be the Hollywood language, right? So it's gotta be Valley Girl stuff. And
yeah, you're gonna learn from film and TV. Yeah,
exactly. So you're gonna learn. That's like, to every foreigner, universal English is for coming from California.
yeah, and a lot of my friends from out east, way east, far east coast, in things like China, Japan, Thailand. A lot of these people I've met throughout my life, they learned a lot of their English through Hollywood, through film and television, which it's great that they can pick that up, but it's also kind of funny being, you know, a native English speaker with some of their word choices or how they overemphasize certain things. It's like, yeah, it's kind of good for the big screen, but it's not really how you talk. And you just kind of, you know, help them along with it, and it's all good fun. But it's
okay. I'm
good.
doing fine. I mean, I was raised on 80s movie, so of course I'll be a one-liner spewing motherfucker.
But Caligula, what about you? Fuck you. But Caligula, what about you? Fuck you. Sorry.
No
Huge Breakfast Club fan.
Oh man, dog will hunt. Anyway.
But yeah, like hopefully, you know, things work out for this woman, because we need more
when you think
educated
about
people.
Historical moment that have been great between French and English. When we put our minds together, we can do something great.
Yeah,
just watch The Buccaneer, when Andrew Jackson was shortage of weaponry, and he asked for a fucking French pirate to get him those fucking ammunition, and they defeated the English together.
Yeah. And, you know, when people hyperbolically, you know, talk about whiteness or white people, you know, it's offensive in that you're losing the individuality between, you know, someone like me and someone like you, Magic. Like, we are white, but we're very different in our culture.
Well, they try. It's a cover-all term to say more communism, less liberty.
Yeah.
Everything has a double meaning when you're in a socialist society. So be aware. Like, welfare is not actually for people being well, right? That's true.
No, I'm laughing because it's true. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's funny in that sad way.
Yeah. So,
did you want to bring something up? Shall I keep going?
Nope, you guys are good.
Come on, Chad. Bring your Coronas on the table.
Oh, picture's not showing. Oh, there it is. Oh, no.
What do you have? What do you have for us?
It was just a... Oh,
I just got your...
I'm confused. You're calling me Jen?
We are live. Fuck it. We are live. We're
doing it live. Oh, no. Why? Hopefully you can't hear that.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else. Like, the only other thing that I saw that kind of pissed me off wasn't really, yet again, it's not really an article. It's just there's this, I'm not sure where it is, but I got a clip off of Twitter. And it was shared by Sheila Gunn Reid. So yes, again, I'm sorry, it's a rebel person. But they are showing a video of the Antifa taking apart the insides of a church and bringing it out onto the street to burn it. And admittedly, like, the comment section is full of like a little bit over the top Christians and stuff. But, you know, I watched it, and like the entire time I'm watching it, I'm just fuming. Cause, you know, if they were to do that to a Muslim church, like, I'm just saying mosque, sorry. But, you know, if they were to do that to a Jewish center,
Yeah, to a synagogue or a mosque, there would be fucking hell to pay. Yeah.
You know, and I'm just like, there's such a level of disconnect with this group. Like, I'm sure there's going to be a real article on it later. You know, this was just something that's been posted today. But I just saw it and I was just like, mind you, I was also looking at the comment section being like, okay, if you guys really want people to take you seriously, you got to tone down the rhetorical stuff just a little bit. Just be like, this is so unjust. Point out everything that I just said. And everybody watching this can see exactly what you're saying, because what they did here is absolutely disgusting. I don't know if I can share that, though. Like,
what they do? You can describe it without showing it.
Okay, so let me just.
Oh, you can show it without. I don't know. Do your thing. If you get down,
well, you know what? I can just share the tweet. I can just share the tweet in chat too. So I'll do that.
Okay, sure. Let's see.
Because I can do that for everybody. Just give me All right. So I mean, they didn't hurt anybody. Like nobody was like physically harmed, but it's another one of those things where like they're burning a church basically, you know. Mm-hmm. I mean, they'd already trashed the outside of it, and it's like, well, I mean, that's nasty, but you know, you can handle paint. There you guys go.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
He's holding a Virgin Mary statue.
Yeah, they just like it just keeps going.
Oh well, if this is just from Twitter, then yeah, we can share it.
Okay.
I can just share my screen. I have it up.
Okay, that'll work. Okay, let me just get back to the StreamYards.
Takes me a minute.
There we go, and play that. Yeah. But yeah, holding one of the Virgin Mary statues on his head, bunch of black-clad retards, LARPers. They're becoming like, where is this?
Like, that's the thing that I don't know where it is. I don't know if anyone.
Because I know in Canada, especially with the story we had about that old couple that were being blocked from crossing the road a couple weeks ago, it has been a growing concern in Canada.
Brandon said it was in Chile.
Chile,
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay.
But they're spreading, and it's a concern because there's no curbing of their. Now the guy's just pulling up tiles and smashing them. What is, like? I don't understand what is wrong with these people.
They are funded to do this. That's the problem.
Like it's a cult like any other, yeah. But
they're fanatical about it. Like this is something that you do when you really want to erase somebody. You know, like the next step. You know. It really is more than just book burning, you know? This is what they're doing. This is actually, you know, let's be real. This is something that the church did before. They are acting like the people they hate the most.
Sure, yeah, of course. They're acting entirely like Nazis.
Like, you look at really what the Spanish did when they brought the church over to South America and Mexico and all that. Like, you know, I'm not pinning it on them now, not current day Spanish people, because that's not their history. Like, you know, but you know what they did was, this is what they did. They would go into church, their temples, and they'd pull everything out. You know, if it was a figurine of gold, they'd melt it down. You know, they would tear apart any artifacts, statues, things like they're destroying a culture is what they're doing. And that, you know, they really terrify me when I see that, you know, at least it's Chile, you know, it's not up here.
It's going up there.
But yeah, like I said, though, it's spreading.
Mm-hmm. We need more Rufio.
Like, I mean, me personally, I'm an anti-theist, but I will never deny someone the right to believe what they want to believe.
Yeah.
You know, religiously, and I would never attack someone physically because of it. I would defend myself, obviously, but I would never attack someone for that.
Yeah.
I would instead maybe have a debate with them.
Mm-hmm.
to like Art of War, understand your enemy before you try to engage. So my first level is understanding. I've done a lot of work in trying to understand about Christianity, about Judaism, about Buddhism, and the Quran. I've done research, I've done reading, I've read the translations, so I have a working understanding, and that's what made me the anti-theist I am today, because I understand it, I disagree with it, and I'm informed enough to sit down with another person who might be a full believer and say, hey, if you want to debate some things, let's talk about it. But other than that, like, I'm not here to deny you what I believe is a fundamental right of expression.
And there's Catholic underpinning even in the atheist people. I found that out the hard way. If you were like a basic atheist who would believe in what? Evolution, right? That's a basic bitch like atheist thingy.
Sure, yeah.
Well, why are we have like so much atheists acting like fucking Mother Teresa on everything?
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't see the correlation. I think that there's a lot of flaws in it. There's no like moral underpinning of atheists as much as they say they do. You want the well-being of everybody. Define well-being, I think that the Christian heritage shall not be brushed upon. I think we have laws put in place that if we let go and just like forget about them, you could like logistically legalize pedophilia at some point with a twist in mind enough.
Well, I mean, it's somewhat happening with the whole MAP movement, and people want to say, slippery slopes or fallacies. And it's like, well, are they though? Because we kind of see some of that stuff happening. That's why Western society is the way it is, because we've dealt with things like pedophilia for many, many, many generations. We've understood and realized that it was wrong. We've shown proof. Medical science tells you it's wrong, it's damaging, and yet, it still comes up every now and then. But, that's the great thing about Western society, the war of ideas. A bad idea, freedom of speech allows that bad idea to surface, and people with better speech are able to knock that shit down. Before it even.
But do we have those? Because we have like one major platform here.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've given the crazies big megaphones, and people are giving them credence by talking to them and about them above and beyond just shooting down their ideas. Like, I don't think any reasonable person thinks that pedophilia or pederasty is good.
It's a slippery slope, as you were talking. They were showing the drag kid.
The story time.
No,
Desmond is amazing.
No, not even that. There's a program by the CBC that was a couple of drag queen kids.
Oh.
Maybe I can show you the trailer.
Great. Now they're making little honey boo-boos with like trans kids.
Imagine the pageant shit that American were doing, but instead it's like little boy, basically.
Hey, America, watch as we freaking mess up our kids on TV.
Yeah. I got it.
I have. Oh, okay.
I got it. Maybe I'll put the link into the.
Oh.
This is the sharing thingy.
Yeah, you can put it in private chat. I'll bring it up.
There you go. Boom.
As long as it's not like video with audio. Oh, okay. It's a YouTube video. I have the actual article up if you want. From CBC.
Well, that's what disgusts me. It's not the article. It's that fucking trailer.
Oh. Where did functional go? Uh-oh.
You click the link. You'll be in. Yeah.
Whoops.
Professionals on the internet, guys.
Oh, it's all good.
Yeah.
Nothing but professionalism here when I hit the wrong button and open the link over top.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I did offline.
Yeah, I'll watch that video later, but I do have the article. Got to reset everything. Damn StreamYards. Okay.
Woohoo! There we go. And
anyway, I think it's been shown previously on other stream.
Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to point it out because it's a thing that's happening, and I don't know if you count this as slippery slope, but when you have like drag adult posing nude with drag kids, it's fucking disgusting.
yeah.
I'd really like to go off on this because, you know, as any person can tell you, being a kid with all those hormones and puberty and trying to discover who you are, it's hard enough. But to have this sort of dogmatic line of thinking and pushing this lifestyle that is based on sex and sexuality
Mm-hmm.
to children is just fucking disgusting. Children are not transgender. We've heard this 100,000 times on other streams from other voices. Like, when I was a kid, I wanted to be fucking Optimus Prime. Guess what? I can't transition into a robot alien from fucking Cybertron.
Yeah, the kids are very easily influenceable, so you don't put that shit up front. You don't put those kind of thing up front. I wanted to be the Terminator when I was a kid. Maybe it was not age appropriate for me to watch the Terminator, but it didn't have lasting effect on my entire well-being.
Yeah, yeah.
That shit, if you promote it, it's gonna have a negative effect for the rest of those kids' lives.
And I can only look at these parents and see them as taking advantage of their children's confusion to get some sort of fame and exposure and make money off of it. As you can see with things like this show popping up and these drag kids popping up everywhere, not just in the US and Canada, in the UK, in Spain, in like all over the place. And it's really concerning because, like I said, it's really confused. It's a confusing time for the child, for any child with your own identity, to bring sex into the discussion and line of thinking only adds another level of confusion because they're not sexual beings yet. Like we were just talking about with pedophilia. That's a protected class. Children are a protected class. And we're letting people of these kinds of movements erode at those protections for children.
Well, they use a couple of excuses like, they just helping them discover themselves, some bullshit like that.
And you hit it on the nail on the head. It is bullshit because you're not letting them discover who they are. These parents, these communities are telling them who they are and who they should be.
Exactly.
Like I'm all for, basic human rights and freedoms. If one of these kids grows up and, in their teenage years, once they've developed, say, you know what, I am not comfortable at who I am, and they are diagnosed by a professional, not by their fucking parents or by themselves, then yeah, let them explore options to maybe improve their life in one way or another.
Yeah, so sorry for the diversion, but it's just something that grinds my gear, really.
Yeah.
When we say we want to integrate people into our values, I don't think that should be part of it at all.
Or at very least, that the discussion of such topics are not taboo. Because with trans activists and Twitter warriors, they're attempting to silence speech about it. How many stories I don't know how many stories I've read about, face big tech censorship over people who want to speak out against this stuff or offer a dissenting opinion to pushing this type of rhetoric. And that's the saddest part of all is the censorship of speech. Again, they're just allowing people to erode certain protections that we've put into place for good reason.
So anyway, that's sorry.
Some of these names, oh my god.
No.
Like Fiery Stefan, aka Lady Gaga, a 9-year-old. Sorry, it hurts my brain so much.
Ooh, that one looks crazy. All right, I'll have to save that. So I'm looking for more stuff to share, and it's being shared by my Wexit Barbie person who originally was just making fun of climate change Barbie, who you know who that is. But there's this clip that she's got, and this lady just looks kind of crazy. So I might just share this one in the channel. I don't know how crazy she is, though.
Yeah, go nuts.
Worst case scenario, I lose my channel.
No, we won't lose anything outright. I mean, obviously, like I said, if we're sharing like full YouTube videos and stuff like that, then it does get into rookie territory.
So take into account, I have not seen this yet. It's just she's really ranting, and I kind of think it's funny when people lose their minds, regardless of whose side you're on. All right.
Sorry, just grabbing that. Wexit Barbie. Can't really hear what she's saying.
Oh, shit.
Oh, my God. Calling her.
Oh, you know what? Okay. That might have to be me then. All right, that's me. Let's see. All right.
Oh my god, she's crazy. Oh my god. She is unbearable. Wow. Okay, so we're not
There we go. Can you hear that?
Yeah. We put it up all the way. It's not very audible, but it's at least hearable.
Yeah, let me just restart that too. Oh gosh.
It's hard to know if this is theater or if this person's serious and that crazy.
It's probably control of position. Putting my Alex Jones hat on.
Can we be saved? God, why is Satan controlling the universe?
Yeah, Britney Spears is gonna save us, you crazy.
Yep.
Oh boy.
Like I
Anyway,
said,
that
these
was
platforms give every insane person a megaphone basically to speak out.
At least it was funny. I mean, it was a little bit like, what? Leave Britney alone!
And there's our boy Ranting Monkey with the top tweet.
All right, I will unshare that now. Oh, that was funny. I'll look for
more. Those are exactly the type of people that need to not have a voice if that movement needs to get legitimacy and to start talking about it seriously on the national stage.
She can have her voice. She just doesn't.
Yeah. I'm not saying silence her, but yeah, like if somebody's actually serious about starting to talk about this on a political level on the national stage, they don't need to be directly associated with people like that.
Sure.
Oh, that's not the Wexit Barbie. She's posting probably like a far lefty.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was confused there. I thought that was Wexit Barbie, and I'm like,
no.
Oh
She's usually posting clips of like Catherine McKenna in her like worst moments. Like how she responded to the farmers asking her about how the carbon tax was going to be dealt with because they have granaries, including the ones in Ontario, because they're affected too. And she was like, well, we're going to do our best to ensure that we support all our farmers, but we still have to tackle climate change. And yeah, that's who she tackles for the most part. Like she'll post like crazies on the internet. She's just, I think if she's anything like me right now, she's looking at both parties with disappointment because you were at least hoping that people would work out something that maybe we could present to the government that would work. Even if it wasn't necessarily like a Wexit, but like, like I said, that firewall thing to give us a little bit more balls in the say of things, and maybe tweaking things down the line, But I don't want to bring that one up again. So.
Okay.
Okay.
We are not gonna do it then.
Sorry, I was listening. I just had to get up and get my wife bought some beers, so a nice. So tonight's beer is Rickard's Red Irish style ale because she's a proper Irish lassie, Scotch Irish lassie, a very beautiful woman.
Top of the morning to you, mate. Open the cold one for me.
Done.
There you go.
Some strong shit.
Yeah, and for our American listeners out there, we have real beer. This is 5.2 fucking %.
Ooh.
Oh boy! Don't brag about it, at least, please.
That Canadian beer up there, that's like moonshine.
I'm
Sometimes
looking
it
at
kind
our
of feels that
standard
way.
beer, and I'm like, our standard beer is 7%. Man,
I don't know what you're talking about.
man, you know what? You know what they don't
Definitely
tell you in
work.
Ontario?
Mm.
What they don't tell you in Ontario is that if you come to Alberta, we have more hard liquor in our cabinets than any other province.
I don't know about that. I mean, Quebec is pretty strong as drunkard goes.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. But like we've been
We
known to have.
celebrate every year a day called St. Baptist's Day, and it's at the place we're being defeated by being drunk. And we celebrate that day by getting drunk on the same fucking space as we got defeated by being drunk. How ironic is that? Eh?
I don't think you understand magic. I'm not saying everybody does this out here, but it's certainly very common for people to have weekend drunk parties. Like we do go out a lot.
It's nihilism all the way. I get you. It's the same here. I'm telling you. Most of the people don't even remember their weekend.
Pretty much that's it. It's just like they get up and they're like Gatorade and McDonald's.
There you go. Well, I'll make myself a coffee. You guys go along.
Sure.
Excuse me. Well, if you want to bring up the screen, I got an interesting little article.
Okay.
Some local news from my neck of the woods. Yeah, so for the last 90-something years, there's been this ship lodged at the top of Niagara Falls. And just this last Halloween, there was a really bad storm in the area. The winds got up to 94 kilometers an hour, which is really high. And it dislodged and moved about 50 meters closer to the edge. The reason why they just sort of left it there is because it was like literally like lodged into the rocks and trees, as you can see in the picture there. It was a part of like this little mini island there, and we never thought that it would have been dislodged because it's been there for 90-something years. But now that it'll be interesting to see what we'll have to do about it, because we don't exactly want that going over the cliff, over the falls when the Maid of the Mist is doing one of its tours,
Yeah, that would be.
But I thought it was an interesting little what the fuck's going on moment, because you can see like the ship, it's nothing but a rusted out hull, can still do quite a bit of damage, and personally I'd like to see that thing excavated and maybe put into some sort of a museum setting, clean it up, seal it up, and put it on display somewhere.
Okay, this is one of those ones where, like, I got it from a fact page. I don't know if this is the same boat, but is this that war boat that you guys were so proud of that was never used? Or is that different? I know it was sunk into one of the lakes.
I don't think so. I think that was in, I want to say Lake Michigan.
Okay. You know what I was talking about that at least. It was one of those ones was like, I hadn't known about it before. I was like, wait, what? It's kind of like how we have such a big naval base in Alberta. I'm always like, I get it, but I don't.
Oh yeah, as you can see in the tweet I'm showing right now, you can see where it was previously right here, and now it's. Oh no, that's where it is now. But where it was lodged. You can sort of see it right here. There's an island, some rocks and trees that it was lodged here. It's now moved to here, and that's where the edge of the falls is. So, and yeah, it does say that they're keeping an eye on it and blah blah blah. That they think it looks mostly secure and it's not going to just go running off towards the edge. But like I said, maybe we should. If we're not going to, you know,
I'm also going to be a little bit of a downer and just be like, so what all is that ship? Because is that not like bad for the water too? If it's just been sitting there for 90 years?
Yeah, well, it's breaking down, it's rusting, it's,
yeah,
you know,
that's what I mean.
You know, I really, you know, was gonna, it's a perfect segue into one of my other stories was that lead levels in Canada nationwide are starting to exceed safe limits. And we're talking from West Coast to East Coast. Yeah, this is why I drink, you know, safe beer, coffee, and Coca-Cola, and never touch water. But, you know, it's alarming because, as the article begins to say, some areas showed lead levels similar to those in, you know, when Flint, Michigan was having its 2015 crisis. And we're talking, you know, this is over the investigation's been the last year, 120 journalists from 10 media outlets, 9 universities. They partnered up with the Institute for Investigative Journalism, and they started, you know, testing these things because it seems like the government is completely inept at doing everything and doing their fucking jobs, because these are the types of things that we have government institutions for. You know, some place like Oakville, which is just outside of Toronto, they were one of the main areas studied alongside, you know, Montreal, Regina, which is out near your end, Prince Rupert and BC. And they're showing that these lead levels are exceeding not only our federal safety limits, but which are unreasonably high, but a lot of more reasonable limits that the scientific community has put out. And it's concerning because a lot of these things lead to a lot of early problems for children.
Mm-hmm. They become really stupid.
Yeah, it dumbs down, you know, massive swaths of the population. It can lead to things like autism, to I don't want to use the R word. What's the word I'm looking for here? Retardations of yes. sorts. Yes. Well, I don't want to say, you know, like to use the pejorative retarded, but, you know, it is a retardation of development. It can cause things like autism, severe autism.
I was going to say it ruder.
Down syndrome. Not cause Down syndrome, but to lead to certain conditions that are similar in their effect on the human body. I'm not a scientist here. But yeah, it's kind of concerning, especially when we have stories like the one we were just looking at, where we have this giant iron scow, former scow, that's just sort of degrading into our water. Hey, we have the technology, we have the resources. Let's take that shit out of the water and try to do some good.
Yeah, Mycroft wrote a comment. He said, lead poisoning is how you get Greta Thunberg. You're not wrong.
You're not entirely wrong. How dare you, sir? And thanks for showing up, Mycroft.
All right.
And yeah, I mean, as this Getty Images, the little caption under there, Canada has 20% of the world's fresh water supply. And again, they're not wrong. It's something that we, as a nation, up until now, have been very proud of. But when things are starting to go on the downward slide, and it's not really again being brought up as a national issue, especially when the story of like Flint, Michigan was such a hot button issue for quite a while. Concerns me. I'd like to see some proactive movements to try to curb some of the pollution, try to clean up what we do have. And it starts with, taking things like big iron wrecks out of the ocean.
No, you're good. It's just I had this.
I'm good. You're not. You're being quiet. Jeez, come on. You can't leave me hanging like that.
No, I had this moment where it was like I thought that I had saved or retweeted something that I thought about talking about, and now I can't remember if I did.
I still got several articles we can go through. There's
no, you're good. You're good.
A couple short ones if you want to bring up the next one. Just a short little thing. Something that's been, near and dear to my heart, something I grew up with. You gonna bring it up? Bring it up.
No, you're good. You're good. I just remembered what it was.
No, you got to bring up my screen. You're the host.
Oh, that part of bring it up. Oh,
you see what I'm dealing with here, people? Oh my god. But yeah, the RZA from Wu-Tang Clan wants to reunite with Rage Against the Machine and go back on tour, which fucking awesome. I am such a huge fan of Wu-Tang. They inspired my love for hip-hop back in the 90s. Kind of made me a little bit of a hip-hop snob, but they were very influential in my life. Same with Rage Against the Machine, even though I'm less of into their political stuff and more just into their music and how relevant their music is and how well they are, how proficient they are as musicians. This would be an amazing tour to have happen. And I mean, not only to have the individual groups reunite, but then to reunite and come back together, because they've both done their collaborations. They've both been amazing artists in the musical sphere, even to this day. I think a lot of modern day hip hop art, quote unquote, artists could learn a lot from just revisiting what groups like Wu-Tang did for hip hop, I thought it was just a cute little.
No, that sounds fun. I'm going to share mine now.
Okay. You found it. Great.
I found it. Well, I'm cheating a little bit because I can't find the official video, and this is technically yesterday's news, but I thought it would be funny to bring it up because it kind of happened after our last stream. So I just got to share my screen again.
I'm trying to high-five the wife, but she's ignoring me. She's too enthralled with the stream.
Okay. Oh boy. No, maybe it's the sound of my sexy voice.
Kitty.
All right.
Is that Don? Is that Don? I love Don. I've been watching him on so many shows and everything recently. I'm like, I love this man. I hope he actually runs in the next election.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna replay it with the sound off, just because like I don't know what's in there, and I don't want that to be the reason they demonetize me. I'd rather it be because the next meme I use for my icon.
And there has been some issue with the "Look at This Photograph" song being played in the meme for other people.
So
I love his face.
So I you know what, I know her name, but at the same time my brain is just like, you know what, you don't want to think about it right now. But we've all heard the story of that little interview that he did with them, and how fast they backtracked when he pointed out every single one of their hypocrisies over the last couple of years.
Where's The View, right?
The View, yeah.
That was delicious.
Every single one of them, and every single time they would try to lie about it, and it's just like, well, actually, I have it right here.
Motherfucker came prepared.
you know, and it's just a work of art because honest to God, it's the truth. Like they have a double standard. They want us to be all like perfect and la 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 and like, oh, we have to toe the line, or if you don't toe the line, you're automatically a racist or a Nazi or whatever the fuck the poison of the week is.
Yeah.
And here they are with this double standard. And it's like, okay, either you have to figure out where everything is okay or nothing is okay. And I don't agree with nothing being okay. But I do think that, you know, like there's times where, okay, your judgment might affect what you do, but you should still have the freedom to do it to a certain extent, as long as you're not murdering people.
Yeah, yeah. Like
You know?
basically not infringing on others' rights, but you can exercise your rights.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love it when he's been so good in the last couple of weeks of taking people to task and shutting down their bullshit. And maybe educating some of the hardcore fans of some of these shows to you're already on to my next article, and to just sort of, you know, maybe show some of these hardcore fans of these shows that, you know, not everybody's right all the time. You may agree with them on some of their opinion, but when it comes to facts, those are immutable. Those don't change unless new information is discovered. But generally facts are facts. Like, I say XYZ, somebody can quote me, the next person can misquote me, but then that first person can go back and be like, no, here it is. Here's the literal quote. Here's a recording of what was said, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But anyway, yeah. So a nice little nod to Canada. Our first city is going to be featured in Overwatch. A guilty little pleasure of mine. That's you know, I have fun killing time in Overwatch. I wouldn't say it's, you know, the best game, and I'm not a Blizzard fanboy. I do take a little bit of issue because as I scroll through some of the images here, you can see the sort of setting for the map that it would be. You know, it's a cyberpunky kind of futuristic utopian society in Toronto, which kind of juxtaposes the overall narrative of what Overwatch is. Certain parts of the world have been sort of decimated by the Omnic War, which is, you know, sentient machines, sort of very Terminator-esque. So some of the maps you take part in are a little bit more dystopian. This one seems very utopian. But as any Torontonian or anyone who has any familiarity with our geography, it doesn't really look like that. It's cute in that, you know, they have the CN Tower, they have the dome, and as I scroll back up, you can see like City Hall, but the dome is not right next to City Hall. And yes, we do have a skating rink in front of City Hall, but City Hall isn't on this like 20-foot pedestal, and, you know, our one of the major roadways is there. So little nitpicky things, but it's kind of cool. They've featured other cities, you know, like Rio and Hollywood. They put in little, as this little paragraph says, they put in little sort of nods to Toronto and Canada, like putting in, there's a cab company in Toronto, one of the biggest, called Beck Taxi. They're very iconic with their orange colored cabs with green highlights. So you can sort of see that here in this picture. Again, if you've ever been here, you know that we have a streetcar system still. So they put a little nod to the fact that we have those, even though current local government is trying to get rid of them. And anyone who's actually been on our subway system knows how shitty it is and how much of a nightmare it is with our really only 2 lines. Sort of a more utopian layout for our subway system, which I look at that and I kind of drool as someone who takes public transit. I mean, that kind of a subway map would look really good. But yeah, one of the biggest draws to the game is the art style. It's kind of got that sort of comic booky art, hyper realistic art sort of feel to it, and they do a good job with the art style.
There's one fucking thing though. There's still leaf on top of the snow. That doesn't work.
Who knows? Maybe in the future we have some genetically engineered maple trees that don't lose their leaves. We have the technology. We can build them.
Oh gosh. All right. Well, that's cool. It's nice that you guys have something in the game. So, yeah.
Good stuff.
You guys got anything?
Yeah.
I'm not well versed into gaming. The last game I've played was on the PS2. So.
Because I've got what I have. Is that me? Oh, that is me. Oh my god. Sorry, sounds are playing. I've got basically 3 more stories.
Sure.
4 more stories. 2 are American political related, and the other 2 are basically entertainment related.
I got one that.
Caligula's got something.
Yeah. Okay. I got one. It's from the CBC because you brought me there, so I just click, and there's an article about Royal Canadian Legion use Fortnite to reach young people on Remembrance Day. So it ties up every fucking subject that we talked about. I'm gonna copy paste it in the private area. There you go. Boom. Come on. Okay. Boom.
This is why we can't have nice things.
There you go.
Okay, I'm popping that URL in. Oh, that's actually kind of cool.
All right, let me click on it. Whoop, there we go.
Players can visit Remembrance Island and are being encouraged to pause online gaming for a moment of silence. I can get behind that, having that moment of respect.
I just find it funny because it ties everything when we talk about tonight. Yeah, it was great.
No, that's really good to see them do. Kudos to them. Yeah, absolutely.
Because as anyone who has, veteran friends, a lot of them are gamers. Because once they're out of the shit and out of their service, they can, without any sort of risk, utilize their mindset, their skill set that they've had ingrained in them during their training to sort of deal with some of the issues that come from being a veteran and being trained to fight and kill other people. But in doing that in a virtual setting, sorry, I'm talking and trying to read at the same time. That's really cool. At least they're not trying to push a rainbow poppy.
Yes.
Yeah. So applaud that initiative.
Mm-hmm. Especially since the person who created the map, the person who created the map is a Texas-based creator, Jaden Allen, who's only 19, and he created Remembrance Island for the Legion free of charge and free of violence. I guess it's just a little, in-game kind of thing. It's nice. I recall, back in the heyday for something like World of Warcraft, people were having weddings and doing real-life remembrance type things in game settings. So it's nice that we have these virtual settings that people from all around can sort of come and connect. And, some people might not be as well versed into something like this, Canadians' history and relation to the poppy, especially in World War II, and sort of have some experience with that. And yeah.
So yeah, sorry. I just
me personally, fuck Fortnite, but yeah.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just find that out and I found it funny because I was talking about video games and Remembrance Day at both in the same article. So.
And really, actually remembering what are real heroes, like people who really fought for something important.
Yeah, and the ones that can make it back.
Street with a fucking flyer on. Fuck those people. You're not a hero. You're a zero. Get back to work.
Get a job.
It's kind of cool. I'll probably have to check that out myself. I have Fortnite. I don't really play it that much, or well, at all. I did when it first came out, but yeah, it's not really my shtick. And there's too many children.
I don't play video games. I cannot tell you.
Okay, moving on.
All right.
So one quick little thing. Star Wars action figure sells for $185,000 US. Long and short of it is it was a original Boba Fett figure. They didn't make too many of them back in, I want to say, the late 70s. And it was a specialty auction item. Yeah, 1979, just closed in an auction. And, you know, it's a specialty item for certain collectors. Not something a lot of people are going to be a part of or, you know, really pay for.
It's not going to be Rose Tico's figurine that goes that high. Hey?
That's for damn sure. One of the worst selling figures of all time. And yeah, like with the recent movies, the figures overall, the toys overall have not been selling. And then, excuse me, that leads us into the next one, which, yeah, I think anyone who's been a Star Wars fan has been kind of keeping up with this, that the studio has been sort of pulling the reins back quite heavily on pumping out Star Wars movies. But they really are pushing for Disney Plus. So they're trying to scramble and push out even more shows. I mean, obviously we have The Mandalorian coming out, which, you know, is all about a bounty hunter in the Star Wars universe. And there was another show, Obi-Wan, which actually is something I'm kind of keen on seeing, because he's always been, ever since the original film, a favorite of mine. Yes, I'm one of those people who actually kind of likes the newer trilogy of 1, 2, and 3. I did have to gloss over a lot of it, you know, obviously.
Look,
Jar Jar parts.
No. You shut up about Jar Jar. If Jar Jar turned out to be the main bad guy, that would be worth it.
It kind of would, yeah. But I'm just saying, like in watching the what do I call them? The second trilogy, I have a new respect for them in watching the newest stuff. Because even though the newest stuff looks better because of the technology we have to make these films, the quality of the writing is a lot worse. A lot worse.
There was a first draft of, you know who? Jar Jar Binks being the big guy. In
the big Sith Lord, yeah.
Yeah. That would have been awesome. That would redeem everything.
I think it would have been kind of awesome, yeah, because it would have shown that that whole Misa Jar Jar Binks kind of thing was really just an over-the-top show persona that he put on to hide in plain sight, like we've seen that these Sith Lords, like the main bad guys in the Star Wars universe, tend to do. Yeah. And why they are such a threat is because, just like Antifa, they hide in plain sight and do their malicious doings, and people are able to fight back eventually. But by that time, a lot of damage has taken place, and it's really gone a little too far.
I don't know. I think the new movie sucks. I just watched.
Oh, I'm on board with you with that.
I just watched The Force Awakens not so long ago, and it definitely, I don't want to see the other one. Apparently, The Last Jedi is a bigger mess. What I don't understand, there's so many possibilities after like the death of the Emperor that you can go on. You can see the aftermath of the war in the Star Wars movie. That would be awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
But you don't.
No. Which is a shame, because I'm a massive Star Wars fan. I've read most of the books that have come out since the movies, the original movies. And some of the I mean, you don't have to copy what happened in the books, but some of the characters, the storylines, the directions they went in could have easily been adapted to screen and been used very effectively. And instead of throwing it all away, they could have used some of it. They did somewhat in their newer cartoons with Star Wars Rebels, which was, yes, it was a Disney show, for kids, but it was in that spirit of cartoons that we grew up with that still had adult themes that were a little bit subtler so that both kids and adults could enjoy it. And they brought in things like, Admiral Thrawn, who has since been made canon. But yeah, it was good.
I'm not a big fan of Star Wars in general. I just think the new movie sucks. If you compare it
Jesus, Magic, what do you like?
No, I like...
I'm not a fan of this. I'm not a fan of that.
No.
I'm just fucking with you.
I do enjoy my Ash William and my Evil Dead thingy, so you can make fun of me for that.
Groovy. No, fuck, man. I love that shit.
Yeah, but regardless, the first, I can definitely see the argument for the first, the 1, 2, and 3 segment of George Lucas are definitely better than the newer one that are coming out. Even if I'm not a fan of it in general. Yeah.
I mean, Rian Johnson has, I don't care if he puts out the next big masterpiece. I'm never going to see it because of what he did to Star Wars. His new project is this really star-studded cast murder mystery kind of movie that when I first saw the trailer for it, I was like, oh, this could be kind of interesting, and then, from Rian Johnson, and I'm like, oh, never mind. I'm not going to see that filth.
Nah, he's gonna subvert your expectation.
Yeah, he definitely subverted my expectations on Star Wars. He turned something that I thought couldn't possibly be ruined and ruined it for me.
Oh man. Anyway, I'm just running with the memes because I don't know fucking shit about Star Wars. I'm just subverting expectation. That's when the movie came out, everybody said that. So.
But that's okay too, because I mean, yes, I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but I mean, my opinion of it is no less important than yours as just somebody who wants to see a good movie,
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure, when you first saw the first Star Wars, you were like, hey, this is awesome.
Yeah, I wasn't, like I said, I'm not a big, my science fiction is more dystopian, the type I enjoy, like Clockwork Orange and all that jazz. That's what I enjoy as form of movies, especially in sci-fi. But that was like a nice sci-fi fantasy mix that I enjoyed.
So then, if I can detract for a moment, what were your thoughts on? And Jen, feel free if you're interested in this as well. On Blade Runner and the new Blade Runner.
Oh.
It's okay. It's not mind-boggling like a Clockwork Orange.
Yeah. Clockwork Orange was a definite cerebral fucking sexing.
Yeah.
Like that movie kind of just made love to your brain and then donkey punched you.
It's not as cheesy as something like They Live, which I also enjoy.
Oh, that's such a great movie.
So, yeah, it's kind of in the middle of this, so I'm not sure about it. I think the whole replicant premise is funny. All the movie that leave you with question are good movie, in my opinion. And the fact that you don't know at the end if Harrison Ford is the replicant or not, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I had to rewatch the second one to sort of really appreciate it. But I've watched every which version of the original Blade Runner since I was a kid, and I never really took to it. It wasn't something that I would go back and watch again, like with Star Wars or Kubrick films.
Yeah. Well, I also enjoy my cheesy 80s movies and action-packed movies. So the Terminator is on my list too, but I'm not gonna see the new one. It looks like
Yeah,
shit.
yeah, it does look like shit. It's
Somebody told
funny.
me it's Terminator at the Mexican border. I'm like, yeah, put those T-800s with the MAGA hat on.
Yeah, I read a
me.
synopsis and I'm just like, I don't want to see this.
Yeah.
I
really
actually rewatched the physically third Terminator movie, and it gave me a new respect for it because, yeah, it was a little bit more tongue in cheek and a little bit more comedic than the previous two were by a mile, but it still was consistent with the lore and setting that the first and second film had established.
And think about this way: they're not coming. They're turning all those things in our childhood into a huge franchise, but it's not gonna be the same for the new generation viewing it. Like the best example I can come up with is the Predator movie, the first one. If you did not see the first one and you go like from the other ones and going back, you're not gonna be surprised. Everybody knows what the Predator looks like, but back in the day, that shit was scary as fuck.
Yeah, and it's really a testament to what practical effects can do for a film, because, like you said, Predator, Alien, and some of the classic horror movies from that time period, because of the practical effects, it actually made it seem real and shocking.
Can you imagine seeing Nightmare on Elm Street, the remake, before the first one?
Oh God. Oh God.
That would like turn you off for good, right?
Yeah, because the second one, Dream Warriors, literally gave me nightmares. I was like, oh my God.
That's my fucked up mindset. But going back to other subject that is like coincide, I wouldn't mind letting my 3-year-old or 4-year-old watching Nightmare on Elm Street. That's the age that it works. Like, you can't believe that somebody is coming for you in your dream. But in my family, I did watch it when I was that young. But they never let me see the end of it. So that fucked me up.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't see how you get defeated at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, you go to.
And I mean, even from a psychological aspect, that's in your dreams as a kid, it's like, from monsters under the bed and this and that. You can generally, as a parent, say to your kid, like, I can protect you from those things. And at the end of the day, there's that certain level of comfort, even though they might still, have some nightmares for a couple weeks. But with something like Nightmare on Elm Street, that's just like cerebral mindfuck in that nobody can save you in your dreams.
Exactly.
That's a place nobody else can touch you. And the fact that he can, and that he's a psychopath, wow, craziness.
Anyway, it's a huge diversion into my childhood. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Oh, are we triggering Caligula? Oh, I'm sorry, dude.
Look, another movie.
Do you need a moment?
No.
Okay.
Another movie that fucked me up when I was young is E.T.
Yeah.
Because
that weirded me out.
Yeah, the first scene that you've seen from it is like his belly glowing, and there's a CIA agent going after it, and you saw those. He made those fucking noises when he's running in the fucking field. And after that, you see him like stumbling upon trash, and you're like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go now. I don't want to watch any more of this shit." But anyway, yeah.
I mean, backtracking just a little bit to Predator. Yeah, Predator 1, fantastic. Predator 2, I thought was just as fantastic. I don't remember the next one.
No, but the point that I was making is the experience of viewing it. When you don't have a second one, the first thing that you see is like an unknown.
Yeah, not everything has to be a franchise, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not my point. My point is the viewing experience for the newest generation is not gonna be the same because they already know what a Predator looked like. When you had just the first one, it was a genuine surprise.
It depends on how exposed certain people, especially younger people, are to some things. Because, you know, if you are going in completely ignorant, you could still have that similar experience. Yes, it is a lot fewer and far between in today's age, obviously, yeah. But
Yeah.
but the I what I was getting at was just a question of, because yes, the most recent Predator was just, oh god, it was so bad. But there's one that wasn't well received. That starred Adrian Brody, Predators, where it kind of flipped it on its head and brought people to an alien world where predators have treated it's like the entire planet is a game reserve, and they bring in the aliens to hunt them. I actually thought it was fantastic. It was a superb action movie. Just you know, like you were saying with the expectations of the Predator and everything, it wasn't there, but it was still one of those good sort of like what T2 was to Terminator.
But the first
good
one,
action.
What they did with the first one is subverting your expectation in a good way, because you see the Predator, it's like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Is that a follow up to Commando or some shit? You start watching that movie and it's like a cheesy action flick where people are flying around with grenade launcher and shit.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden,
boom, it hit you.
Yeah.
So
and 2 did a very good job on doing that in a different way. You know, yes, people who had seen the first one were like, okay, I know what the Predator looks like, but now that he's on, you know, a more familiar turf in LA, and what he could do with all that, and then the ending, you know, spoiler alert, to find out that there's a culture here behind the Predators, a hunter culture, and that because the main good guy, name is slipping, Danny Glover.
Yeah, Danny Glover.
How he basically single-handedly defeated the Predator. The Predator's peers were like, no, man, respect. We're going to let you live, but we have respect for you. Now get the fuck out, you know, kind of thing. I thought that was a really good way to take a different twist and subvert your expectations.
Shout out to Bill Paxton, because he was on pretty much all of those movies.
Yeah. He was the everyman in that time of filmmaking.
Who else can say that they were in Predator, Alien, and fucking
Terminator? Yeah.
So
guy's a fucking national treasure.
Anyway, sorry for the diversion.
No, that was fun.
When completely off the rail, we were supposed to talk about Canadian stuff, and we were like into Hollywood movies.
Not entirely.
Oh no, well we kind of thought about doing that anyway, just so that like it wasn't all 100% politics.
Super serious, yeah.
Makes it more lighthearted at the end, just because, like, you know.
And someone like me who's a complete cinephile, I love film, I love movies, the entertainment industry, you know, I just, you know, it's nice to just shoot the shit, get your guys' opinions on things, and to hear what some of the chat has to say about these things.
Yeah, there's no problem with that. I just haven't watched movies in a really long time, so I'm kind of out of the loop for a lot of stuff, and even growing up.
Yeah, I'm completely the opposite. I don't play video games, but I watch a shit ton of movies.
I do both. Sometimes at the same time, I do both.
So, yeah, I'm completely the opposite. But I'm not watching recent stuff. I discovered other niche instead. Like, I'm big into Galio's movie now. Those Italian, like, whodunit, murder mystery shit. They are pretty great. There was one named The Psychic, and the entire plot is that girl having the vision of another girl being buried in an apartment, like in an apartment wall. And halfway through the movie, the big twist is that it had the body in the wall, but it was not vision that she was seeing. It was premonition, and she's ending up in the fucking wall at the end.
Oh, thanks for ruining the fucking movie for me.
No, but Italian.
No, that sounds really good.
Yeah, those fucking Italian like Gallo movie are always having like fucking plot twists at the end. That you
and that's how you do a proper twist, not like your
Shamalama?
Yeah, Shamalama Bing Bongs, it's like, it's a twist, which you can, if you have any understanding of filmmaking, can see a mile away.
Yeah. No,
that's a good suggestion. I'll have to check that movie out because it sounds really interesting.
Well, I can send you a channel. There's a lot of Gallo movie from the 70s, and they all have plot twists. They're not all good, but most of them are good. So yeah, it's like whodunit. It's like Scooby-Doo, but with gore and tits. So.
Can't say no to gore and tits.
Exactly. Anyway, sorry for interrupting again.
No, you're good.
Oh my God, you're so Canadian.
Look,
Sorry.
I don't know. I feel awkward.
I love busting his balls. It's so much fun.
I feel awkward talking about movies in like a Canadian talking show or something. It's like,
yeah, this is kind of anything goes. I mean, yeah, we do want to focus a little bit more on the unspoken voices of Canadian stuffs.
Well, I did write in the label of the stream as Canadians talk about stuffy.
Okay, fair enough.
Being entertained is a Canadian issue. I'll allow it.
Oh,
just like, American politics, as much as we want to separate ourselves from them in many respects, we are also intertwined with them. So my next article...
Oh, that really awkward embrace from Alaska,
Well, we do have Ontario, which is kind of like the... how shall we put this? The phallus, the love rocket, penetrating the top of the United States.
Straight into Detroit, you get AIDS.
Just let it happen.
We're getting dirty.
Just competing because we know Monkey's streaming right now too.
Oh, is he?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, Lords of the Night.
That's okay though.
That's fine. We're just shooting the shit for now. But yeah, our darling fucking Bernie Sanders. Yeah, as much as I hate Michael Bloomberg, yeah, but you know what? I don't care if he's a billionaire and he wants to enter the election. I don't care. That's what makes your system so great, is that anybody can, whether or not they're a billionaire or they're a nobody with a grassroots campaign. They can and should have the right and freedom to enter. And you saying your opinion is one thing, but like ragging on them for having a different opinion for you, and then using that yourself, Mr. Sanders, to garner more financial support is kind of why I fucking hate you. Kind of why I really fucking hate you, because you want to say and espouse how, we can't let fear win and blah, 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 blah. But then you're using fear tactics. Like, oh my God, Michael Bloomberg is a man of extraordinary wealth and one of the corporate media just loves. So fucking what? So fucking what? He's that much of a threat for you? Well, then maybe there's a lot more than just his wealth behind it, because the wealth will only get you so far. Trump didn't win just because he's rich. Barack Obama did not win because he's rich. Bush did not win because he's rich.
He won because he was black.
Well, no, it was part of it, but he won because Obama, because he was a great orator. He knew how to speak. He knew how to get people motivated to get to the polls, which I think is more important than being a multi-billionaire.
Yeah. If you put Yes Weekend in reverse, it says "Thank you, Satan."
Oh my God!
I'm joking.
You ass! That almost made me send beer out of my nose. And for our American viewers, that's a crime punishable by death. In the glorious People's Republic of Kanakistan.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, the article just goes on about who Bloomberg is and blah, blah, blah. It is what it is.
I was really holding myself back from quoting this because I know Mycroft's in chat, but I was just like, he's just a postmodern bigot. Because I know that Caligula knows who that is, but yeah.
I hate those pomos.
Postmodern bigot.
He's a child.
So by now, everybody's heard about the Amy Robach expose by Project Veritas in saying how, 3 years previous to all of this stuff with Epstein happening, how she had the evidence and witness statements to try to expose what was going on with the pedophilia rings. But the person who actually released the hot mic recording of Robach to Project Veritas was fired by ABC. Kind of obvious if you're going to basically fuck over your employer like that, but also good on her. From a moral standpoint, from a, she's going to hopefully be able to bounce back from losing some shitty job as a I think she was only there for 3 weeks, a nobody at ABC, to, maybe someone like a Fox News will pick her up for, doing good work, or maybe she'll get hired by Project Veritas or something. Her that one window may have closed, but 17 doors just opened. So
yeah,
good on her for exposing this, because this is something that's been in the news cycle for quite a while now and needed to happen. And I might not always agree with Project Veritas in some of the opinions that they hold, but in the journalistic integrity that they purport and some of the things that they expose, I'm really happy that somebody with some sort of recognition is actually doing this stuff. Because we cannot rely on mainstream media. It's evident. It's happened exponentially since the Gulf War in that 24-hour news cycle that we can't trust these people anymore, because the more clicks, the more eyeballs, the more they can rile people up, is the more they profit, even though it's completely unjustified. And when there's stories like the Epstein stuff, or the, oh God, who's the big guy from Hollywood?
Nope. I'll keep it on yours.
The producer guy? Weinstein, Harvey Weinstein, with stories like this actually getting the light of day. This is stuff that all could have been exposed many, many, many years ago, but because the mainstream media didn't want to touch it, they're, in my mind, they're just as liable in being complicit in this stuff. Yeah, so it's
I'm not pausing your article. I just want to share this for 2 seconds.
No, we're done with that.
Because it's just funny.
He's signing. What did he say?
Epstein didn't
kill
himself.
He didn't kill himself. I knew he was like, something didn't happen, but yeah, he's like...
I'll play one more time just because
it's a hilarious meme for our time.
Just... You know what? It's almost like the rebirth of Harambe in my mind a little bit. But I like that. So, all right, I'll go back to your screen.
Oh no, that's fine. That article was
okay.
Our last.
Our last one for the evening.
Last one. Well, before this,
Yeah, sure.
Kind of always end the series of articles with a nice pot-related article because again, it's something near and dear to our hearts.
And absolutely Canadian, right?
You know, we have the one side, the Ontario Chamber of Commerce, government, suggesting that private stores will increase the convenience, which I'm, you know, on board with, and yes. But the main question is, will more legal pot stores snuff out the black market? Heavy users say no. You're never going to quash a black market. As long as there is a need for a product or service, there will always be a black market, whether it's prostitution, drugs, or, you know, film and TV. There's always going to be a black market. Yes, can we lessen the influence, recoup some of the lost dollars over time from the revenue of sales by allowing private concerns to start doing this properly, like they have been for the last several decades in that sort of gray area, especially here in Toronto? Yeah, probably. But it's not going to quash it. And as we've spoken before, the current system where the province is in complete control of it all, the black market has been doing better than ever. Just out of convenience, pricing, etc., quality. You know, you can't central plan something like this and then expect the black market to just dry up and shrivel. No, you let the free markets decide. You let consumers decide. And 9 times out of 10, you'll come out with a success story as opposed to a negative story.
The other thing that they should have done in the first place, and I like I said, I know this is a store-to-store thing because, you know, there's some stores where they're not bad, like they're not great, but they're not bad. But a lot of it also has to do with the dispensaries. You know, like they really could have brought on those potheads who knew what they were doing in the first place to work a lot of those, or at least work their own businesses. Because a lot of the problems I'm finding with the products is like, you know, some of them are probably great products. It's just they don't know how to weigh stuff properly at all. Like the one treat I got myself for my birthday, it was all stems.
So so at the production level, they didn't clip the buds properly.
Yeah, you know, so I mean, like, you know, it was still good pot. Like what was there was good pot, but you're sitting there like, okay, for the amount of stem that you had in there, I would have had a better deal if I'd just bought like 2 of the joints, you know, because those are 1 gram to 1.5 grams, and just reworked it for a pipe or whatever, you know, and that's kind of reoccurring from what I've heard, you know, and the price doesn't change. Like you could be getting like a cheaper strand of pot, which is fine, you know, or you could get like a stronger strand of pot, and you're spending money on it, like it's not cheap. And you're getting all the twigs, and you're just like, oh, okay, that's not how you do with pot. And then yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, you're completely right in they should have been approaching these gray market producers and sellers and distributors to bring them into the fold. Like say to them, hey, as the government say, hey, you guys have been doing this for so long. You're obviously learned and experienced in the markets and how the product works. Let's work together on this, whether or not they hire them outright or bring them on as consultants or something, but do it that way. I don't know how they did it there, but in Ontario, a lot of the people that were brought on to work in these shops were brought from the alcohol industry in Ontario, the LCBO, the Liquor Control Board of Ontario.
Yeah.
And as most people know, you know, in Canada, it's provincially regulated so that you, in Ontario, you have to go to a government store to buy alcohol or beer. And yeah, because a lot of these stores had, and because it's government jobs, they can't just fire them outright. They needed to repurpose these people, so they repurposed them to a completely different industry that they knew nothing about. So you would have someone who'd worked in a beer store for the last 40 years now suddenly selling pot.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing. It's like you're going to bring somebody who's used to selling fucking top of the line sports cars to sell used cars. No, that's not going to work.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of that out here too. You know, and like I said, some of the stores are doing okay because some of them out here are, you know, legit self-owned, you know, and the employees that they hire are people who smoke pot. And, you know, I've mentioned that to them before, you know, like it's not that the pot is bad. It's just that, like, you know, some of them, you know, you end up with a little bit more stem than I would expect for something that you're spending like, you know, $50 on or more for 3.5 grams. You know, I'm just like, okay, you guys know this stuff, right? Like, you don't want to actually send people to the basement dwelling guy because, like, you know, he's going to give them better pot for a better price. But this place that I went to, I mean, they give you a 5% discount on top of it. So I mean, it doesn't help, but at least they're trying to work with what they've got. But they all come in the same little like capsule containers. You know, you have to bring them back in to recycle them because, like, that was a huge mystery to me. You know, just saying, you know, this whole like, oh, we are all about the environment, but this product that we're bringing in to help stimulate the economy is all pure plastic.
And it's,
I mean, at least, yeah, sorry. I mean, at least you can reuse them, but like, it took forever for them to even bring that part in. And I'm just sitting here like, what?
I just wanted to talk about what's going on in the article because, you know, they're talking about the Ontario shops, brick and mortar shops. And they're saying these stores are very much geared towards, you know, the soccer mom. They'll smoke a joint at a party, whereas the real consumer, the base of, you know, pot consumption are the people who are still using the unregulated market. It's just not their jam. It's not the kind of atmosphere that they're looking for, which, you know, as a heavy user, I can somewhat agree. However, you know, just glossing over the next couple paragraphs, in Ontario, we have 25 shops for 14.6 million people. And although we have 50 more stores slated to begin opening, they're taking their sweet ass time. In Alberta, you guys have 301 stores for a population of just over 4 million. So you can see how it's becoming, because of the government overreach and hyper regulation, you can see how Ontario's screwing the pooch on this, and Alberta is doing a little bit better. They're opening up the doors and saying, okay, here's the market. Let's see what happens. Now, if any sort of problems arise, we can address them, but we're not going to do the pre-crime thing of just, you know, planning for every contingency and making sure we have red tape for each one.
Well, here's the thing. We kind of already knew that this was going to happen. It's one of those things where, like, when we realized that our pipelines were being screwed, we were kind of hoping that at the very least, if they were going to bring in the pot, we would make sure to take care of it on our own. Like I said, like, it has to do with the dispensaries a lot. Like, they really have to fix those. I mean, some of the government run, or at least more heavily run stores maybe need to kind of rethink their layout. And I mean, some of them, like, you know, some of them have gone like the doctor route. And I'm like, I get that works for people who maybe are using it for medical purposes and they don't really feel comfortable with it. But when you set up a store like that, you aren't making it appealing to like the general public, you know? And I mean, that's okay. But to appeal to the general public, you know, you're setting up a pot store, set it up like you would if you're selling booze, you know? Like, you got your pipes, you got your you know, your oils, you know, you maybe, like, you know, I mean, obviously down the line, it's going to take us a while to get the edibles and that kind of stuff, because that's, you know, different regulations.
Yeah, that's dealing with the food regulations.
Yeah, and I mean, that's fine. Like, I mean, we don't mind waiting for that because we'd rather it be safe anyway. But, you know, like, you set it up like you would, like, any kind of store that has what you're selling. So yeah, I'd say we've done a pretty good job. The only thing that they're not probably doing as well with is just the fact that most of us are, you know, if you're buying pot, you have a job, but most of us don't. So
as I scroll to this gentleman, Jay Rosenthal, who's a co-founder and president of the Business of Cannabis in Canada, centralized here in Ontario. He does look like the target market.
yeah.
But thankfully, I don't look like that. But yeah, he does look like an old school pothead.
Yes.
Hippie, yeah. Advocate. Again, bringing it back full circle to, you know, what's happening with Wexit and that whole mentality. You can still be this kind of like hippie looking dude, but still pick and choose your wording and the battles you fight to eventually affect some change.
Yeah.
Because he's one of Mr. Rosenthal here. He's one of the guys who's been advocating for more private sector availability to retail and making it more legal so that, yes, you can have the options of going through your government retailer. Also in the article, there was a suggestion from the minister from the government side to have an online click and purchase thing, sort of like, you know, you would just pick and choose and order what you wanted, and then you can go to the government store to pick it up.
Yeah.
Good idea. Yeah. But also don't leave that at the door. Don't leave it that at the doorstep and say, yes, we will do that because we want to compete with the gray marketeers who are also doing that kind of thing. Like, for instance, I'm not going to name any names, but the company that I work with to get my product, you know, dried goods, edibles, that kind of thing. They have a point and click system online. You go, you order your stuff, and you set up a delivery. And, you know, in comparison, just price wise, the price point is equal to or less than most brick and mortar retailers that I go to. Plus the fact that you can get it delivered to your doorstep for an additional, you know, $5 charge. They're going to win in an open market. That kind of business model is going to win because they're offering 100 different options. Unfortunately, because it's been in the gray area, their storefronts closed and they're solely relying on this method. Should it be allowed for them to reopen in their store, I would see that they would probably do that because, again, options. You're opening up the markets to those drop-ins, to those quote unquote soccer mom types who just want to come in, grab a couple, or like you, who just want to come in, grab a couple joints in a clean, safe environment and go do their own thing the rest of the day. Whereas people with, well, I don't want to get too much into it, but with more mobility issues or who just don't have the time to go in and get re-up all the time can just get that quick and easy delivery service.
Yeah.
Or can buy their own fucking plant.
Yeah. But that takes a certain level of skill, and you're not going to get the same quality as you would from somebody who's been doing it for the last, 30 years.
Yeah.
Because as Rosenthal says in the article, when it comes to those regular users, quality, price, and convenience, those are the big 3 points that more regular users, whether they're like more social users or heavy users, they're pretty much on the same board, that those are the big 3 things that they're looking for. Yes. And surprise, surprise, that's almost with every industry, consumer goods wise.
Yeah.
Why do you think things like streaming services have been doing so well, Hey, Geodes. I've just started watching some of his stuff with Minions of the Zoo. I just started watching some of their content. It's fun. Just watched Quiz Inquisitor 8.1, 8.2. I forget what version he's on. Doing his model painting stream the other day, which is it was a little interesting because I used to be really big into Warhammer. I liked their freewheeling, free dealing sort of streams. They're nice.
Yeah, they're a pretty good crew. Like they're a bunch of us from Lords of the Night streams. So I kind of started following them too. Like they've been streaming for a couple of years. It's just I usually end up following after Satsu because I like watching his game streams, but I'm kind of taking a little bit of a break from it just to focus on this stuff. And it's not that I don't go to visit. I do. It's just like,
Oh, I do all the time. And, I love those two. And even if I can't watch or I'm doing something else or whatever, I'll still have their stuff open in the background because, it may just be one pair of eyeballs, one viewer watching, but, one viewer turns into 10, turns into 100, turns into 1,000, turns into, 500,000. Every view counts in my book.
That's basically it. Like I've been doing a lot of lurking, and I mean sometimes I still play them in the background, just to listen. But I've just had a lot of stuff that I've been doing, and and trying to reach out to the rest of the community too.
Yeah.
So I mean that takes dedication and actually being a decent person about it too. It's not just about building my own channel, but it's also about learning about what other people talk about on their channels. And, I did that on Bloodwing's stream the other night. Like I did a shout out for Jack Dutsky, and it was just because he's had me on his stream so many times, and it's just nice to show appreciation to the community. So I just really miss playing 7 Days to Die, but I can't play until they fix the goddamn system in the multiplayer, so...
It's one game I really wish I kind of got more into, but it was just not my thing.
Yeah, it's
fun.
It's not for everybody, but I mean, it does have a certain lifespan. Like the one thing was that the updates kind of kept it interesting for a while, especially since they were so frequent the last year. But for me, it's it's still the same game, and then they've kind of done stuff to tweak it that wasn't really. I don't think it was. I think it was a little too much. And then at the same time, I also think, they should be fixing their landlines if they're having those kind of issues, because in this day and age, that should honestly be an easy fix.
Yeah, but you also got to understand that the Fun Pimps, this is this is still early alpha. It's still, they're still trying to get to the point where it's a finished product. But yeah, I understand the sentiments.
Yeah. So I mean, eventually they'll do it, and I'll find out about it. But it's just certainly made it less fun when I'd go in to play with the boys, and 10 minutes later I get kicked out, and it takes me another half an hour just to log back in, and then I only in there for maybe 15 minutes, and then after that I rage quit. And the worst thing is I can play in the single player no problem. I mean, I cheat, I get mad when I can't play with them. So I'll just put on all the dev stuff and just run around and shit. And,
Yeah, I did that a couple times just to see what, they've added without having to go through the motions of, leveling up and doing all the skills and grinding, and just to see what, the later game stuff they added. And yeah.
So, yeah, it's all good. I kind of went back to Stardew. I'll probably keep that up for another week just because, I've never really... the thing with me in Stardew is I'll play, the first year or two. I never, ever actually form a relationship in the game because there's a part of me that doesn't like most of the characters, really. They're not bad people, but I wouldn't want to be married to one of them.
Jen's holding out.
Well, it's not just that. It's just all of them, they'll say stuff and you're just you're kind of a douchebag, I mean, I don't blame you for that, but at the same time, though, Yeah, no.
And what makes it a good game is that you can just, because it's a single player classic RPG style, you can jump in and jump out.
Yeah.
At your leisure. And when you've got as much going on in the current time as you do, it's a very quick and easy way to get that escapism. And to me, you know, I will never see, I've always been a big advocate of finding what makes you happy in your escapism from real life, to be entertained for even a few minutes.
Yeah.
And latch onto that and don't give it up, because, you know, we don't need to always be super serial about everything all the time.
See, I also have this great idea for a mod that I really wish one of the Stardew Valley people would make. And I would call it the Snowball Fight. Picture the whole world in just like the snow, you know, which you could do that. Like, you just keep it in the snow season. And, you know, everybody's got those mega bombs. But instead of mega bombs, they look like giant snowballs. I think, you know, there's so much potential for something really fun there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, as a better seasonal thing to do, you know, and maybe some of the bombs blow up and you're like, oh shit, I took a point. And sometimes they blow up and maybe it's a present or something, you know, or you have teams and you just have a little chaos and war. But it just, yeah, it's one of those things as a snow country where I'm looking at it and I'm just like, there's so many things with that idea that would make it so much more fun. You know, but that's just me. Same with the fishing and the lake thing. I'm just like, you know, the fishing is fun, but you know what would be even better? A hockey rink. I don't even watch hockey, but you know, in the middle of winter and you've made your own fake frozen lake, you know what you do? You get some ice skates, you make up some nets of some kind, give everybody a bunch of sticks, and then you beat the shit out of each other. But tactfully. But that's just the Canadian me speaking. So
no, but it's a good idea, and if you aren't already familiar with it, you should probably make a post on their forums.
Yeah,
and their suggested forums, because I've seen a couple things in Stardew be added from player suggestions.
Yeah, at least as long as
and they're also really good in engaging with their audience. That's why I like little studios like that still have that level of connectivity with their consumers. Something a lot of entertainment companies don't these days, whether it's film, TV, or video games. Like, again, with the, you know, not to get too much into it, but, you know, in recent news, we had the big Blizzard China thing that took a wrong turn, because they weren't as connected as Blizzard once was with their community. Blizzard, at a point, was the powerhouse it became today because they were so interconnected with their consumer audience. And, you know, very active forums, official forums, and third-party forums. But they were very active, and now it just seems like they're just... again, the acquisition of them by Activision, a company who's well known for putting the dollar bottom line before any sort of I'm fumbling with my words here. I'm sorry, everybody. Before their commitment to their consumer.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, that's kind of one of the things that I do like about the guy who developed Stardew. Like, he's always, you're right about the forums. Like, he's always been really cool about that, especially if you give him a fun idea.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like he seems like the type who's really in love with what he created, and I think that's actually something a lot of people are missing. Like, you know, it's really, for me, it's like looking back at all the old games that I really liked. You know, and I admit I was a Final Fantasy VII fan, but, like, you know, when I look at the game, it was kind of cringy looking. You know, even for me watching it back in the day when I first watched it, like, the graphics were kind of derpy. But the concept...
You had to use some of your imagination there.
You did. You know, you had to picture them as what you wanted them to be. But the concept of the game, the concept of the story, just like it drew people in, and that's what made it so good. And don't get me wrong, like the reintroduction of it, like I like seeing the nice graphics and stuff, but you know, and they're following through with a lot of it. But it's also Epic, isn't it? Epic, EB Games, I think.
EB?
Good God, I'm tired too. Yeah, it's EB Games. I'm thinking of a shrimp right now because of fucking Japan. Screw you, Japan. But yeah, EB Games, you know, and Square Enix. So I mean, like sometimes they don't really hit the mark, but I hope that they'll at least do enough of a decent job to like that true fan base. You know, it's. I'm not holding out too much for it though. So.
No, but I think that your idea in specific is actually kind of fun and interesting in that it might gain traction. You know, this is coming from someone who isn't actively playing it right now, but as a gamer, I could see that being, you know, a fun thing to have.
Yeah, you know, because like a lot of games do seasonal stuff like that, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely. That's a huge thing right now in the gaming industry is to have these seasonal events. You know, Halloween just passed. Like almost every game I play had a Halloween event, and you know, coming up there's going to be a Christmas event and blah blah blah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's something to think about. But yeah, I do have a couple of other games. I just I haven't gotten back to. Like I have Graveyard Keeper, which is basically the darker version of Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
I haven't finished that one either, but I think the thing that's gotten to me is like, you know, the first scene with the donkey made it so amusing, and I'm sitting there like, so when is he going to start shit again? And
I'm not familiar with the game, so I don't know what you're talking about.
So it's a funny game. You basically die in one world, and you're basically transported as a graveyard keeper in the other world. And your guide is basically the dancing skull of your predecessor.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens in the game is you're in this medieval town. You're supposed to fix up this graveyard, and you're supposed to deal with the bodies of the dead. And this town doesn't really sell meat. They're very poor. Like, you know, you might be able to make vegetable foods, but there's no meat.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a royal seal to create the meat, or to certify that it's real meat.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the aspect of the game is that the donkey brings you the dead bodies, and you just happen to be able to talk to the donkey, and he just happens to be communist. And well, you quite frequently take apart the bodies because you use the bodies for certain parts, and sometimes that means needing a stamp to sell some meat to town. It's a very warped little game. It's very cute, actually, despite the theme of it. But you're also in a time period where there just happens to be an inquisitor who's sniffing out witches, and you're basically an alchemist throughout half of this. Like, you're both just violating bodies for parts, and then you're being an alchemist and creating zombies to do your work for you, because you're just one guy who's supposed to build this cathedral type church. And it's a funny game, but like I said, there's this scene with this donkey where the donkey realizes that he's doing a vital service that he doesn't feel like he's getting properly paid for. Like he's getting paid 5 carrots to deliver each body, and he realizes that he's the only one providing this service, so he can make demands if he goes on strike. So he goes on strike, and he demands that you start paying him an extra 5 carrots. So he's getting, 10 carrots every time he delivers a body. And you're sitting here like, okay, Mr. Communist, just so you know, what you just did is what's called capitalism.
Excuse me. Sorry, I fired up another joint, so I'm coughing like a newbie. It actually sounds like a fun game. I'm surprised I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's I'd say about 2 years old they released it. I followed this guy called Dangerously Funny from he's actually from Vancouver, And I'm surprised he still has a channel. I mean, I love his stuff, but he's got a very warped sense of humor. You would probably like it. It's very dark humor. But he's decided to play the game like a lot of YouTubers in like the worst way. And like he made Stardew Valley on YouTube a thing. Like he pretty much put it on the map for Stardew. Like you'll find a lot of his demos on Steam. And on the Stardew Valley, on the Stardew Valley wiki page. But he made it a point to like use mods, show how they work, show the elements of the game. He would tell you secrets about the game. He'd make up theories about, whose child was this secretly in the game because somebody has purple hair and there's only one guy in the town who has purple hair. So like he did a lot of that stuff, but he was also one of those guys who made it very obvious that he was gonna like marry and divorce everybody in the town in the worst way possible. So yeah, there's lots of games like that. He did the Graveyard Keeper. He's actually done a lot for Steam. He's one of those guys who's pitched a lot for Steam, but you know what? YouTube doesn't help those guys at all.
No.
So, and he actually has a sense of humor. So I'm glad that he hasn't really, I haven't heard anything too bad from him. But, it's always one of those things where like, yeah, he had that one episode of Sims where like he played the murder mod and he just had them all kill each other with guns. And it was fantastic because it was like 500 Sims destroying his Sims game, killing each other. And they were all sociopaths. So yeah. I think we should probably wrap this up pretty soon. Hi, Mustafa! I enjoy the conversation, but like I'm getting kind of tired.
Yeah, that's cool.
But we'll have to work out when we're gonna do this next. So I don't want to be mean to Blood, but just so that you know, the rumor is that Bloodwing is gone for Tuesdays and Thursdays for the next 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm. I saw that he finally got that job, which is cool.
Yeah, which I'm happy for him. And I'm not saying that we would steal the spot permanently or something. I'm just saying, like, maybe on the odd day of the week.
But for the time being, yeah.
Just because people might be like, well, now I have nothing to do. And, it doesn't necessarily all have to be about politics either. For that one, we can even just make it about, fun stuff on the internet that we did. And then we can make, because I know Caligula works. So, for maybe we can set something up for a night stream where we have him either Friday or Saturday or whatever day you're free for.
Mm-hmm.
So, but guys, we will work that out between the three of us. We will probably pick a day and just like work stuff out, and Functional and I will figure out what we're going to do for that time slot, just because like I said, I mean, there's going to be people looking for things to do. And maybe we can entertain some people, and if you guys want to take turns on your end too, so it's not just me. I don't mind supporting you guys and sharing your shit. And we could bring on guests.
Yeah, sounds good.
So, all right. So I'm gonna shut her down. Say goodnight, guys.
Young out.
Better dead than red.
Right.
Agreed. Night, everybody.